Hello everybody, this is Jeff Carter with Jeff Carter Logistics, and I'm putting together another video for my customers and as well as new people that are coming to the website. This is going to be a bit of a verbal resume. Some of you know me for the last 5, maybe 10 years, but maybe don't know going back 20 years. So I'm going to let everybody know my background a little bit. And then I also wanted to thank a few of my mentors along the way. So this is for one part, a personal level, to thank some people that have helped me in my career. And then on another side, just to let everybody out there know, am I qualified to move your freight? What qualifies me to move your freight and make appointments to talk to drivers or not? So that'll be what I'm putting together today. If you've got 10 minutes, fine, watch it. If not, put this off to a later time or don't watch it at all. It's totally up to you. But I grew up in a town called Elkhart, Indiana. It's north central Indiana. It's just about a half hour from Notre Dame. So if you're not sure where Elkhart is, but you know where Notre Dame is on the map, that's kind of about where I was. Went to Purdue University. I graduated in 1987 with a bachelor's in business management. I was hired by a company back in the time called Kraft Food Service. They were a division of Kraft Foods, but Kraft Food Service at the time was the food service industry really comprised of a lot of mom and pop operations nationwide. You had Cisco Food Service, which was fairly large nationwide. In the Midwest, you had Gordon Food Service, which was pretty big. But then you had a lot of mom and pops that were around. Kraft decided through the 80s to start buying up a lot of these mom and pops and put them under their umbrella and start to manage them that way. One of the locations that I went to was called I. Feldman out of Savage, Maryland. So that was my first job as a night worker, basically a nighttime supervisor. So I learned how to pick loads, load trucks, run a forklift, things like that. If you're in the food service industry, you understand when you're loading trucks, you load the frozen up in the nose. If you got a 3-compartment, you might do chill in the middle, but at the time we didn't have that. We just did chilled and dry in the back. And then the drivers go out to the restaurants and deliver the frozen off the side and the dry off the back. So Kraft Food Service has been buying some of those, and then I met the first gentleman that I want to talk about, Jim Cremens, who helped me a lot from that facility. He and I both moved down to Richmond, Virginia. He was the general manager of the Richmond, Virginia Kraft facility, and I was the night supervisor there, and we worked fairly close together, and he helped me a lot. After about 2 years of being with Kraft on the East Coast, he said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "I really want to get back to the Midwest." So he helped me get transferred with Kraft to Cincinnati, Ohio, where I worked the night shift there. But certainly he was an integral part in me getting back to the Midwest, which I wanted to do. I didn't know until I got out there and got away, and I got away for a couple of years, wanted to come back. After 2.5 years of basically being with Kraft and working the night shift, I kind of said, I've got a resume built. I don't have any personal life. I don't have anything else going on. So I kind of looked for another job. And at that point found a job in Indianapolis, or I'm sorry, I got to back up. I took a job in sales. So here I had gone 2.5 years in operations, loading trucks, unloading trucks, keeping track of pickers, managing people like that. Now I'm on the street on the daytime job selling food. So it was very different. There I walked in the back of restaurants, talked to chefs, talked to owners, and tried to understand what it is that makes up their cost, what's the cost on their plate and things like that. Very educational for the food service industry. So I got to see the operations side. I got to see the sales side. But after about a year, I knew my heart was in operations. I like dealing in the warehouse. I like dealing with the drivers, the warehouse people. And that's kind of where my heart was. So still wanting to get to Indianapolis, I took a job with Rykoff Sexton here in Indianapolis. They had a manufacturing plant. Rykoff Foods was kind of at the time in the western part, western distribution centers of the United States. Sexton Foods was on the eastern side. And during these 80s and early 90s consolidations, they decided to get together and become Rykoff Sexton Foods. That's where I met the second gentleman that's helped me along the way, Ed Lemke. I'll bring his name up later, but Ed basically worked at the Rykoff Sexton plant. He loaded the product that was just produced on trucks, shipped it over to my warehouse about 10 miles away. I unloaded it, and then I would ship it out to the distribution centers nationwide. So work close with him to figure out when the load's going to be ready. Do I need to hold this truck, get it on the truck, things like that. And did that for about 5 years. I really liked it. But I really wasn't moving up to the point where I thought I should or wanted to. So in my late 20s, took another job here in Indianapolis with a company called Multi Foods Distribution. Multi Foods had just bought Leprino Foods. Leprino Foods was nationwide food service company that basically catered to pizza chains and Italian restaurants, things like that. Multi-Foods came in and continued to do that, but they also focused on things like Auntie Anne's pretzels, basically chains that were very specific, vendor-specific foods. Whereas Craft Food Service was what they call broad food service. These Multi-Foods distribution is more specialized. Still did the same things on operations. I was a warehouse manager there, so I learned more about the day shift operations, ran a day shift and a night shift. Did that for 5 years, and the general manager there at the time was Daniel Wynn. Helped me out a lot. I think we really got the facility working well after a couple of years when it wasn't. And helped me out. And Daniel certainly helped me out a lot there. I don't know what he's doing now. He's probably retired, so thank you, Daniel. After a few years then, he took a job with another company. I actually started to go through a few personal issues. I got a divorce, and I found myself in a position where I needed to take a job to get some raises. I just wasn't making the financial situation I was at. So I did take another job. After 5 years at Multi-Foods, I went to work for Target Distribution Center. Target has a distribution center here in Indianapolis that is by the airport that's huge. Really got a taste of not food service, but obviously retail, mass production, automated systems, things like that. So going from working in a warehouse with maybe 30 people, you got 300 that worked in that facility. So it was huge. I did that for 1 year, working nights and days. It was a rotating shift. Had another opportunity back at a company called United Signature Foods. United Signature Foods had just purchased the old Rykoff-Sexton facility here in Indianapolis and had new management in place, and they were looking for a warehouse manager. So I started to work for them as a warehouse manager. We were trying to specialize in refrigerated soups. At the time, Rykoff-Sexton was still about 80% of our contract business. We made mayonnaise, salad dressings, things like that. But we were really trying to get this refrigerated soup off and running. And we did a little bit, but at some point after about a year, we lost the Rykoff-Sexton contract. That being said, it was 80% of our business. A lot of the investors decided to pull out, and the facility basically closed. So after a year there, found myself in a position to try to find another job. So here I am in my early 30s, and sure enough, Ed Lemke, that name pops up again. He knew of a gentleman down in Greenwood, Indiana, looking to hire somebody in a 3PL non-asset-based logistics company. At the time it was called Megasys. So I went to work for Megasys. They need somebody to do account management with a company called Arch Chemicals. Arch Chemicals makes chlorine and pool cleaners and things like that, at the time we were distributing to 1,700, 2,000 Walmart distribution centers nationwide. So really jumped into the dry LTL, got to learn a lot about that. With all the shipments that go out in the spring, everybody's stocking up on it. At the end of the summer, all the returns that were coming back. Stayed with them for about 5 years, went on to manage a company called Bosch Automotive. Bosch, we were involved in their inbound, not so much their outbound freight, but got some experience down in Mexico, 14, 15 facilities nationwide. Really enjoyed that a lot. And then learned a lot from my boss there, who was named Dennis Johnson. He's the operation manager at the time with Megasys, which later became Meridian IQ when the company was sold to Yellow Freight. So worked closely with Dennis, learned a lot about transportation as opposed to just the warehousing side that I had been familiar with. Megasys was heavily involved in dry LTL. At the time the company sold, Yellow Freight, YRC at the time, decided to keep the Greenwood facility open for about 2 more years, and then they closed that facility. So not wanting to leave Indianapolis, I was looking for a job again. Took a job with a company called Blue Ribbon Transport. They were the transportation, and they are the transportation arm of Kaido Foods. Kaido Foods is a large produce distributor here in Indianapolis. So I went from dry LTL at Megasys and Meridian IQ to understand a lot more about dry truckload at Megasys with the Bosch Automotive. Now it was refrigerated truckload. So now I learned a lot about produce, 3 or 4 pickups. What do you have to do? Temperatures you have to control. Picking up in California, Florida, how the seasons change and the rates change. So learned a lot from being there for 5 years at Blue Ribbon Transport about refrigerated truckload and LTL shipments. And then I had the opportunity basically to go on my own and be a broker like I am now, which was about 7 or 8 years ago. I took a job with a company called RT&T Logistics, which I've been with for 7 years, and the other video on here that can explain the transition. I basically went over to D&L Transport earlier this year due to insurance reasons. But that's a little bit about my background. I'm going to try to keep it short now. I, again, want to thank a few people along the way. Ed Lemke, you've helped me more than once, and I want to thank you. Jim Cremens, you were there early, and you've been in touch with me. I know you're in Hawaii now. How you doing? I hope everything's wonderful in Hawaii. Retired or working, half working, half retired. Daniel, I think you're probably retired at this point. And then certain Dennis Johnson, you're still here in town, and I just saw you not long ago. I want to thank you for individuals. I hope if you've watched this video, you understand a little bit more about my background in the food service industry, the produce, the dry side as well, and why I think I'm qualified to move your freight and talk to the drivers to pick up your freight on time, deliver on time, and give you a competitive rate. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you've had a great summer, and I thank you very much. Bye.